Welcome everybody to this meeting of the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee on Tuesday the 27th of January. I'll go to apologies first, please, if I may.
We've got, oh, sorry.
Forgive me, Chloe, sorry. I'm riding shotgun on behalf of Craig Griffiths. Craig gives his apologies. Mike Shaw from Neath Talbot Council.
Thank you, Mike. We'll record Craig's apologies and welcome. Are there any other apologies for today's meeting?
We've got apologies from Christy Tillman, Chair, as well.
Okay, thank you very much. If that's all, then we'll record those. And again, if you're able to raise a physical hand when indicating if you wish to come in and speak or if you are casting a vote today. We'll move to declarations of interest then, please. Are there any interests that members or officers wish to declare today? No, if there are none, then we'll move to our first full item, which is the South West Wales Regional Transport Delivery Plan, final version, pages 5 to 14 of your agendas. Who's with us this morning or this afternoon, sorry, to take us through this one? I think Stuart's going to give us a run through the report, yeah?
That's it. I'll just introduce it briefly and I'll hand over to Lee just to run through a little bit more of the details on there. So it's the next iteration of where we've got to in terms of following on from the approval of the Regional Transport Plan. So this is the presentation of the year one investment plan as part of the Regional Transport Delivery Fund submission. So it's the detail of what we're intending to invest in for the year ahead, and then an indication of what will roll on to future years. And I think the appendices are in closed session in terms of on there the details on those schemes themselves. So I think if there's any questions on those, that'll need to go into a separate session. But give a hand over to Lee just to give a bit more background, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Yes, certainly. So that's just a reminder for members there from Stuart, quite right, that Appendix 1, 2 and 3 are exempt under paragraph 14. So again, if you had specific questions on any of those, obviously if you do indicate before asking the questions, because they'll be the ones that we'll need to deal with in private session. But if not, everything else can continue in public session. Okay, apologies, Stuart. Yeah, you were handing over to...
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good to see you all again, and thank you for taking the time to listen to the latest updates today. As Stuart says, the Regional Transport Plan is now approved. Wendy has kindly written to her fellow chief officers to confirm that this is now a live policy document and should be involved in planning decisions, some economic decisions, environmental decisions, and so on amongst the four authorities. So it's very much a live policy document now, Chair. So just to members to be aware of that as that process moves forward. As Stuart says, we're looking at year one investment programme. We are looking at also a potential to roll bigger schemes over into years 2 and 3, and they're recorded in the annex if we obviously wish to go into private session to discuss them. The good news is that the latest stance from the Welsh Government is that those years 2 and 3 funds will be committed as part of the decision for the main year one fund. Obviously, that could change subject to the machinations of our colleagues in Cardiff Bay. But the principle at the moment, Chair, is that if we've got a big project that needs money over 1 or 2 or 3, over 2 or 3 years, we will get a firm allocation of funding for that across the piece. So that's very good news for some of the bigger schemes in the region, where we're looking at multiple years worth of contractors being on site and so on. So I think, once again, gives us more certainty to move forward with. So just in terms of the appendices, I won't go into the detail, Chair, but just to confirm, there's been a late addition that's not in the appendices, but obviously we'll just highlight that today without the details. There's the main budget that we're submitting, which is the base budget in effect, which is an overall figure of 24.3 million, plus some contributions we're expecting from matters such as planning gain, UK government funds, potentially the regional growth fund that's now been obviously passed to Wales as well. So there's various UK type national economic investment funds that we'll lock into to cover that slight excess off. It is a little bit over about 600k at the moment. Obviously the figures can be worked on. Value engineering will come into play as we get the projects actually up and running. The second appendices is actually looking at that bigger budget. The Cabinet Secretary invited us to consider what we could do with an additional £11 million. So effectively a 40% uplift in the overall programme value. So one of the appendices covers that. We followed the previous discussions with yourselves and the Transport Subcommittee and the Scrutiny Committee, and now that may be spent. The principles are recorded in the report that we'd want to suggest spending 50% of any additional funding we receive on Metro. Obviously, that's the critical project for the region. It provides the spine of our transport network, as it were, and that's both the rail type projects to support the Welsh Government in bringing those forward to some degree, but also the regional elements of the Metro that we're working on, such as bus infrastructure, a number of interchange facilities and such like. So I think joining the transport network together in that case. The other 50% of any funding that we may receive, and of course, as I said, it's all still very much up in the air at the moment, subject to Cardiff Bay's budget setting process, we would be looking to accelerate the delivery of those smaller schemes in years 2 and 3, trying to bring delivery of those forward into year 1, mainly to take some of the pressure off years 2 and 3, because we will have to go through an annual exercise, Chair, to refresh this programme every year, and the more we can do in year 1, if that's possible, obviously it makes that exercise considerably easier. It demonstrates early delivery as well, so it cements our track record with the Welsh Government as well. The final late edition, Chair, and it's not an appendix at the moment, but just to table this as something we've been obliged to do by the Welsh Government, is actually for the base budget, the 24.3 million, we've been asked to provide an additional small number of schemes to account for a 10% contingency on top of that £24 million. What the officers will recommend to you, Chair, and the committee is that we actually spend any, if that additional 10% risk fund almost in a way comes to fruition, we would want to spend that on the Metro. It is, I think, from the discussions with this committee and colleagues in other committees, it is the region's priority to progress the Metro as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So we've put we're going to make a submission, I think, with your agreement, Chair, on Friday to the Welsh Government, actually saying if there is that 10% contingency available, we would use that for the Metro schemes. So there may be a little bit of double counting there, Chair. We've got the list of the additional potential 11 million, but we've also got a potential additional just over 2 million in this contingency pot as well. So a little bit of 3 scenarios at play, but we do think that the base budget is the key one at the moment to get in there, Chair, to actually secure the funding. The others are obviously, I wouldn't say they're optional extras, but they're ones that are subject to the Welsh Government budget process. So I think, is that everything, Stuart? I think the only other thing, Stuart, to say is that we're on the cusp of appointing a secondee to deal with the initial administration of the programme. So Matt Bowyer, Stuart's colleague, is finalising that this week and next week. So we will have some administrative support in place. And I think that's the key now, isn't it, Stuart? He's just getting ready, assuming everybody's content and he's happy for us to submit these lists on Friday. We need to move into that mobilisation phase. We have asked for a part of the recommendations, Chair, just to finalise this. We have asked that Wendy, in conjunction with yourselves and Councillor Evans, can make minor changes to the documents. We're almost inevitably going to be dotting I's and crossing T's up until Friday, so there is the ability for Wendy to make some minor textual changes if we find that our English has not been up to standard, and so on. So that's the key recommendation, Chair, beyond approving the actual programmes that we've submitted in the appendices. I think that's everything for Stuart. Have I covered everything the Chair would be needs to discuss this afternoon?
I think as the committee, that's absolutely fine. Thank you, Lee. It's covered everything.
So Lee, Stuart, thank you for you and everyone who's put work into this to get us to this point. Really appreciative of all of that. Just to say, I've just received in the last 4 minutes a letter from Ken Skates, which I'll circulate shortly. But again, a very positive response from him, commending us on the work that was done on the original draft of the plan, and states that he's looking forward to receiving the final draft on the 30th. And again, to quote just from his letter, he says, let me just get the right bit. He says, we've provided an indicative allocation of 24.7 million, which we knew about, to the South Wales region. The region has made brilliant progress in developing the programme, and I look forward to receiving your application by 30th of June. I'm also keen that we work together to secure as much funding as possible from a variety of sources, including the Local Growth Fund worth over 500 million, as a prime example of where the Regional Transport Plan provides a strong basis for identifying priorities for investment. I'm also glad to hear that the work is continuing to develop the South West Wales Metro, including the consultation on the plans. And again, that links in very much, Lee, to what you were saying in terms of the importance of taking forward some of the Metro elements as we take this forward. So again, I'm sure we'll be in a place, as you've outlined, giving some flexibility just to get the final T's crossed and I's dotted, so we're in a position to submit subject to today's decisions on Friday. So with that, are there any further or any comments or questions for Lee or for Stuart on the plan? Steve?
Thanks, Rob. You don't need to go into private session. It's not on finances. You may be in a position to answer as well part of my question, Rob. While that letter you've just received and read out, grateful to you reading that out as well. And I'm just wondering about the safeguarding and the risks, Lee, when you talk about base budgets and ongoing spends, year ones, twos, threes, etc. Who will be the decision maker? Is this going to be tied in straight away before the elections? Because there could be a complete new minister dealing with this sort of situation for us. So it's just wondering, you may not have the answers or any of that information, but it is critical to understand, while there's a lot in this report which is encouraging and important to deliver on, when looking for further funding is in there, additional investment. Of course, as a region and as a CJC, we can do that. We've got very capable officers, etc. But at the end of the day, it's usually coming from the Welsh Government or UK Government. It may come from as well. So it's really important to have an understanding of exactly the point we're at, if you've got that information. I'm not suggesting you will have it, but those safeguardings and risks surely are there because of the unknowns, I suppose, going forward. So I only wanted to ask that because this information may not be something what we'll have when we get after the election. Thank you.
Maybe a bit of a double act, Chair, between Stuart and I. Talking to the officials, Chair, their preoccupation is ensuring that the transport submission that we've made in the past, the one we're going to make on Friday, is actually communicated up to the Treasury in Cardiff Bay in as part of the Welsh Government budget announcement that I believe is due in a few weeks' time. So obviously they've had an imperative to get this settled before the purdah for the election election starts, so an announcement can be made, the publicity given, and so on. The election has obviously sharpened the minds of those officials in terms of timeline. Clearly, we have had situations in the past where the leader of NPT will be aware that the grant letters have not arrived until literally the 1st of April. The budget the budget and election issues this year, I think, Chair, will dictate that announcement is made probably in early March, simply because of the close down of the centre for the pre-election period. So I think we will get some certainty in terms of budget for next year, and I think that's even if I dread to suggest, even if it's only the base budget, we can obviously mobilise on that basis. Equally, I think we've indicated previously to Chair that there is a pool of resources available for the region to pull on. Carmarthenshire, for instance, operate a large civil engineering framework on behalf of the region that's got multiple advisory firms, contractors, etc. on board already. So mobilising additional resources, Chair, I don't think is an issue if those additional budgets occur. But I think we will know, correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart, the officials are very clear that there will be an announcement in early March. There needs to be. There's no other way that they can actually do business in this particular year without that announcement.
Yeah,
thank you, Lee. Stuart?
Yeah, just to reiterate on that, yes, the announcement, certainly every intention it will be before that pre-election period comes in. So we will have that commitment for year one. And positively, there's that sort of baseline sort of commitment, I guess, for the ongoing projects as well, in terms of which has been something I think for as long as certainly I can remember, there's been a kind of desire to have multi-year settlements, and although it's not full, understandably they can't give the full block allocation, but it's certainly sensible to have that, knowing that if we've got projects on the ground, that there is a commitment to fund ongoing on those which are being constructed, so things aren't left half built. So thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that, Stu, as well. I'll come to Jan next. Jan?
Yes, thank you. And Talbot, afternoon, everyone. We were very pleased to submit a response to the consultation in August 2024. And in doing so, we made the point that every time we survey patients and service users, sustainable travel and transport access is always very near the top of their agenda, particularly those who live in our more deprived areas and those who live in our rural areas. So it'd be very good to understand, please, how that's been addressed as part of this plan.
Yes, Stu or Lee, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, I mean, I think inevitably there's been a degree of background information. Obviously, I think we respected your consultation response. We had some extensive engagement with your officials in the lead up to preparing the RTP. I think the first observation to make, Stuart, is that we can do a lot more if the additional funding's on the table. I think, as always, we started out with an indicative figure several millions north of where we are in reality today. I think, as always, we can do more. I think the one of the big things that I think has exercised us in the RTP, just to outline the challenges first, if I may, is bus franchising. And obviously we know that the challenges around that are significant for healthcare access in particular, and education access as well, but certainly healthcare access. So Stuart's colleagues around the region are pressing very strongly on bus access to healthcare facilities. I think we also had a long conversation with colleagues in the other health board about their potential new delivery model and how that would work. And I think we actually welcome that this more town centre based approach, where there was going to be some concentration of facilities. That, I think, linked into our approach, didn't it, Stuart, around developing major transport facilities in some of the bigger towns, improving the access in those larger towns as well. But do take the point, I think, that the jam can be thinly spread, which may not be ideal, but certainly we also, I think, went through, didn't we, Stuart, a long sort of soul searching about obviously being clear that active travel, walking, cycling was not for everybody, and we needed the transport plan to play a significant part in influencing bus access in particular, but also looking at how we could support effective car parking management around and on your sites as well. Obviously, we know you've had a long proposal for the Morriston Hospital access, which was discussed at length as part of the process. So I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but I think, once we see the funding settlement, I think we can actually start to drill down into the detail, can't we, Stuart, and confirm exactly the healthcare implications. Certainly it's in there. It's in the impact assessments that have took place. That's one of the criteria, access around healthcare, well-being and so on. So there's been the usual extensive assessments take place, and the Welsh Government have agreed those and that analysis. So I think, yeah, healthcare has been at the forefront of our minds. We do recognise it's a challenging landscape out there. And I think, that's one of the things that's brought us to the table, isn't it, Stuart, in terms of where we've arrived at?
Yeah, I think just to reiterate on that, certainly public transport and bus travel came very high on the feedback. There was strong voices coming back about the importance, as well as with the rural connectivity. So how we tie in with demand responsive transport, how we sort of get those solutions so that certainly patients or clients in terms of for the different service areas can get the access. Obviously, with franchising, it does give overall a bit more control in terms of how the network will operate in terms of the base network for the buses, and then how we then, which then can tie in with rail services, and then it's how we then help tie in other services to link up with that and respond to the different needs. So, yeah, it's certainly been a voice that's come through loud and clear, and it's not a finished piece of work, transport policy, and the sort of demands never are static, and they'll be reviewed on an ongoing basis. And as you say, depending on the level of investment, what we can do, and the initiatives that are brought forward to try and improve things across the board. So, thank you.
Yeah, just before I bring John in, Jan, just from me, just to say, we've been really explicit with ministers around the fact that as the first region to take on bus franchising, we didn't feel that the base network that Transport for Wales was proposing goes far enough. And again, the move to a publicly controlled but privately run or mixed bus operation, whilst welcome, won't meet the public's needs if it still doesn't run at the right times to the right places and connect people up. And, politically for us in this region, we need to be able to demonstrate that taking on franchising shows those improvements to our communities, the linkages, the services. So all of that needs to be delivered. And, I would hope that those messages have been heard loud and clear by ministers. And again, just to emphasise the point, when we came to approve the base network plan in Swansea, we did it only conditionally. Because we were concerned that, again, there needed to be more ambition in that base network and to set out a plan which delivered far more in terms of connectivity and assurances of what we could create when we take on franchising. So, again, very much on the same page, Jan, in terms of making sure we fix the problems we know are there. John, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Rob. Very similar point to Jan, actually. Those of us that live in a rural area, bus network is absolutely crucial. And before this meeting started, I was looking at the Minister's letter of the 25th of September in response to the transport update session we had in the Guildhall, I think it was. And I'll quote him here. I agree with the point raised in our meeting that we must look to boost rural services too. We can build on the successful flexi pilots and share best practice on emerging options, such as community car clubs, that increase affordable access to often electric private cars. So obviously it looks like the Minister's on board there, and I think the answer has been given to Jan's question by Lee, Stuart and yourself, give me some assurance that obviously we are looking at through the RTP, bus delivery, bus network, plus bus availability in rural areas, because yeah, we can have a train station in Haverfordwest or Pembroke in this part of the world, but getting there is another matter. So I think we need to look at that. Thank you, Rob. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. Again, fully agree. Absolutely. Okay, are there any further comments or questions on this item for Stuart or for Lee? If not, just to recap, you've got 5 recommendations. They're on pages 5 and 6 of the report. I think you should probably just move back to formally move, which I'm happy to do. Could I ask for a formal seconder, please? Thank you, John. And just a reminder for colleagues, this one is a vote only for local authorities on this occasion. So again, could I ask for local authority representatives to show whether they're in favour, please?
That recommendation's been approved, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. We'll move then to item 4, which is the UK Research and Innovation Local Innovation Partnership Fund. It's on pages 15 to 22 of your agenda today. Welcome Lisa in to take us through this one.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. The purpose of this report is to provide members with an overview of the South West Wales application to UK Research and Innovation, part of UK Government, under the Local Innovation Partnerships Fund completed strand. And it's seeking a decision from the Corporate Committee on the governance arrangements with Neath Talbot Council as lead bidder, and that the Industrial Resilience South West Wales bid is the only bid from South West Wales, and also to seek approval to submit the bid and to enter into agreements should we be successful. I'll just go through because of the new way of working. So by way of an introduction to the Local Innovation Partnerships Fund, in October last year, UK Research Innovation launched the 500 million revenue fund over a 5-year programme period. There were 2 strands, an earmarked strand and also a competed strand. So Cardiff Capital Region was successful under the earmarked strand, and then it was announced that any places outside of the earmarked strands could submit bids under the competed strand. As a region, as you know, we've been working together over a number of decades, and also we've got a strong research innovation cluster and also a strong governance structure, also innovation ecosystems, and therefore we came together as a region to propose that we submit a bid under industrial resilience, looking at energy security and also material security. In terms of the Local Innovation Partnership Fund, in the report you will see there are a number of objectives looking at growing high potential innovation clusters, building capacity across UK innovation ecosystems, looking at strengthening local partnerships for place-based innovation. In terms of outputs, it's looking at close to market commercialisation, not sort of blue sky thinking, and it's looking at new or improved R&D and innovation infrastructure, jobs created and private sector investment leverage. And that private sector investment leverage is key to this bid. And there is the ratio of 1-to-1 in the first few years, up to sort of 3-to-1 ratio. In terms of outcomes, it's looking at attracting investment, improving productivity. The application process is a 2-stage application process, and it's based on a functional triple helix partnerships, that's government, academia and industry working together with a clear governance framework and also evidence of capability and track record. It's an extremely competitive process, so our application needs to make a compelling case for funding, demonstrating we've got a cluster of real strength, supported by world-class evidence. And as I mentioned, there's only can be 1 application from a region, so a place. So this is the South West Wales bid. And then in the report, there are 5 bullet points providing an overview of the key areas for our initial submission, which needs to be submitted by the 12th of February. We need to provide a strategic vision and also looking at our priority clusters. We need to also outline our governance and leadership and also our operational capability. The report outlines key activities for funding, looking at research commercialisation, business growth and development, and also some seed corn funding. So in terms of the South West Wales submission, it's proposed that Neath Talbot is the lead bidder on behalf of the South West region. And we have a project board in place with local authority partners from Swansea, Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire local authorities. We've also got academic partners from Swansea University and University of Wales, Trinity St David. We've also got industry partners from Net Zero Industry Wales, and we've got Welsh Government as an observer status, ensuring coordination across Wales. Net Zero Industry Wales have commissioned BIC Innovation to prepare the bid and coordinate the bid for us. The theme is the South West Wales industrial resilience, but going through input from the Private Sector Advisory Board, they advise us to update the title to make it South West Wales Industrial Resilience and Innovation, to show that we are forward-looking in terms of innovation. And the theme is building on the fact that the region has the potential to establish itself as a clean energy transition hub and also remain a cornerstone of the UK industrial base. So we're looking at the focus of the bid on energy security and also material security. And also it's based on the South Wales Industrial Cluster. For the submission in February, we need to indicate a high-level overview of the types of projects that will be included in our portfolio should we be successful in this first stage. So we held an expression of interest and that closed on the 9th of January. We had 50 expression of interest in from across the region. So we're really pleased with the interest from a number of organisations, including academia, industry, and also regional energy teams. So we have a meeting tomorrow to prioritise those applications. And there's also a really healthy level of private sector, proposed private sector leverage. So we're coming together tomorrow to meet to share a view from a local authority perspective, an industry perspective, and also an academia perspective. And that shows we have the Triple Helix partnership working in action. So the submission is the 12th of February. And so if we're successful, we need to submit a portfolio either in May or June, so it's 2 waves. So this report is seeking, there's 3 recommendations to the report. And Chair, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for that run through and for the detail and for all the work on this one. Yeah, happy to open it up to colleagues for questions. Jan, I'll come to you first.
Yes, thank you. We haven't been involved in this, and we have noted that there isn't need for an integrated impact assessment, but we are happy to supply a health needs assessment because this will have both direct and indirect population health benefits, and we're very happy to supply that, and we can do that within the timeline.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Jan.
Yeah, many thanks for that, Jan. Definitely picked that up. Are there Councillor Harvey, John?
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Just say this was considered at the Economic Wellbeing Subcommittee that I chair a few weeks ago. Unanimous support for the proposals put forward. So more than happy to move the recommendations, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chair,
yes,
sorry, can I add something? So when we took us through the Private Sector Advisory Board and we were proposing that one of the anchor projects is a fund which is linked to the Regional Economic Delivery Plan in terms of commercialisation to support start-up spin-outs. The Private Sector Advisory Board suggested that a few of the members would be part of a working group to ensure there's input from industry to ensure that the fund is appropriate to the needs of industry. So that I meant to add that to my overview. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think, as been indicated, I think that's been one of the constraints on our region for some time, is that other areas have had growth funds and flexibilities to invest in companies, as you say, and this will be welcome in terms of adding to our abilities as a region if we can be successful. Elwyn Evans.
Hi,
Elwyn,
I'm desperately keen to support this in every conceivable way we can. I suppose my question is, as the Vice-Chancellor of UWTSD, where the academic triple helix governance element comes from my institution. In that I'm not cited on it. And I absolutely would be desperate to do everything we can as a university that's, you know, across the region to support it. Perhaps we can take it out of here, but it's just making sure that, you know, I'm sort of chair of Unis Wales, I'm vice president of UUK. So, you know, this is a real passion for me and for the institution. So anything we can do to support, please just reach out, because it's a fabulous opportunity regionally for us.
Thank you.
Sorry, Lisa, do you want to go on, and I'll come in back in after you.
Thank you, Ellen. So we've got really great support from Trinity St David's through Richard Morgan. He's on our project board, and so he's been involved from the start. So we've
yes, I see. It's at that level. Okay,
yeah,
fine.
And so we've got academia. So we've got Swansea University, Trinity St David as on our project board, but we've also got input from Cardiff University and University of South Wales in terms of providing that academic input into the UI process. And then we've got local authority partners providing the government input into the EOI process. And also then we've got Neath and Wales and their industry partners providing that industry. So that's the triple helix partnership coming together in action. So thank you, Alvin, for your question.
Now, just before I fetch Wendy and Elwyn, just to say, again, I made similar comments when I had pre-briefing on the agenda, as I usually do as chair. And again, I think it's one that has lacked visibility, certainly at the highest level, until it's come here today. So it's not been one of the ones that we've had a great deal of pre-notice of. So it is one of the things that I think we need to do more of. Because again, I was not as aware as I should have been of the work that had gone on to that point, and it's something we are picking up. So I think your comments are very welcome on that. Wendy.
Slightly on the same subject, but I think just to support Lisa a little, because I know time frame has been tight, but this is an expression of interest, isn't it? So the full details, everybody will have a lot more time, I guess, to come around the table and look at some of the details and the projects. But I think, Rob, it'd be worth, just for the minutes maybe, you did mention, and I thought it was quite a good idea, that maybe as a region, because we're going to have a lot of this coming up in terms of the new regional investment programmes and what they're going to look like, whether we do look at setting up, I think you called it a pre-inception grants panel or something along those lines, whereby I guess the minute we see an interest and a fund, that we get together and see what the priorities would be for the region and what we have to offer. I just thought it'd be worth you maybe just reiterating that.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Yeah, look, I mean, I'm sure other authorities and bodies have similar processes in the same way as we have a forward plan and a forward look for work that we might be undertaking as a programme. One of the things we've done in Swansea for some time is have a regular meeting looking at funding opportunities or potential opportunities that we might wish to pursue at the earliest stage, because the concern has always been that well-meaning opportunities come along which may lead to either political impacts that we would be concerned about, or financial obligations that we wouldn't wish to carry long term. So I think by having that early checkpoint to say, look, these are on the horizon at the moment, and we're potentially going to be interested in bidding for A, B, and C, and we'd all like you involved. Could you all help us get there? I think having that early checkpoint is really helpful, and I think that's something, if you're all in agreement, we could add to the process, because as Wendy says, this is hopefully the first of many opportunities where we can potentially be pointing towards pots of money and going after funding that could be a benefit to the region. Elwyn, did you want to come back in before I go back to Lisa?
If I may, because I think there is something really profound about the opportunity here and being joined up. I mean, I'm going to be a little provocative, and I'm going to say I'm not sure that either Swansea University or UWTSD are involved in directly with the Cardiff activities. And there is an awful lot of work that's going on regionally around that skills piece and the energy piece, not just the universities, but also the colleges. And for example, my group includes 2 colleges and so forth. So I think what I'm saying is let's have that opportunity to talk about how we can strengthen what we are doing regionally and not necessarily feel that all of the expertise may be, or some of the expertise may be elsewhere. I think that there's always a risk that some of the activity that's going on is under the radar. And I'm talking not from a perspective of looking at any benefit from the university or the university group, but what we can do for the region. And if we're not 100% at the heart of helping, then perhaps there are some opportunities that will go. And Richard Morgan's absolutely great, of course he is. But you probably need some heft in some places at leadership, university leadership level as well. So I'm just volunteering myself and my time and my team's time to help out in joining up some of the dots here.
Yeah, thanks, Elwyn. That is very welcome. And I wouldn't dare paraphrase you, but certainly the point is well made that if we've got capacity and capability in the region, that should be our first place to look, shouldn't it? Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back on your point about the early checkpoint. So as the Talbot Council and the lead bidder, we do an early checkpoint in terms of revenue implications and ongoing costs. And we've, in terms of when this in October 2025, when UKRI issued the guidance, we've given sight to the regional leads and then the regionals. We've used the governance structure to make sure that we've taken through the system to make sure there's a number of checkpoints to ensure that this is appropriate for the region. And this is the first time it's come to Corporate Joint Committee because of the timeline in terms of the October 2025. But it's had sight from the regional leads, regional directors, the Private Sector Advisory Board. But welcome in terms of the regional coordination. But we have we just to I suppose to allay any fears that we have done those initial checkpoints in terms of any ongoing revenue implications. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And I think that's good reassurance from a local authority perspective as the lead body. But of course, what we're trying to do here is to make sure that that is also something visible and talked through regionally. And I think that's where the additional checkpoint will come in, because of course you're asking for regional support for this rather than just local authority support. So I'm sure we can build that in. And the good news in all of this, I don't hear anybody actually saying that they don't support what's being proposed. I think it's just making sure that we've taken the advantage of all of the resources in the region to make sure it's as good as it can be when we submit and go after it. So definitely support that. So are there any other comments, questions from anybody on this item? If not, again, I'm happy to move this one. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you, John. And again, this one's for LA leaders to vote. So could I ask you all to show if you're in a favour, please?
The recommendation's been approved, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll go on then to item 5, which is the third quarter financial monitoring on pages 23 to 28. So now let me see if I can guess this time. Is it Chris this time for this one?
It is indeed, Rob. Thank you. Diolch. Yeah, so as you say, this is the quarter 3 monitoring, just providing us with an update on spend. As you can see, there is some variation in the budget, which is inevitably happening with the CJC, because I think we're still in development stages and things are changing as we go through the year. Typical example is that we've agreed to appoint a chief operating officer, which wasn't planned in the original budget. And also we've had some commitments to some of the things like UK Reef and Western Gateway, etc. So there are some variances. Around the democratic side, I'm looking at Appendix A now. Around the democratic and the governance side, there's an underspend there on what we were expecting for a number of from a number of angles, that some to do with finance, because we're not needing to put so much resource in at the moment than was originally expected. As far as some of the additional spend has taken place, we have had a number of grants that we've secured this year around the capacity and capability grant, the 200,000, which is further down the page, completion of the RTP works, and obviously we've had the last couple of years a small amount of interest coming in, which wasn't budgeted for originally. The work streams have had some variation with costs, but that's partly linked to some of the grants that certainly was secured for the RTP. And you will notice that we've kicked off some of the strategic planning area, which has actually been funded through the planning and programme budget that we set aside at the start of the year. So all in all, we're on the right side. There are some reasonable variances in places. We have secured some significant more grant that's actually helped and swung the forecast the other way. We were originally planning on drawing in the region of 150,000 from 153,000 from reserves. We haven't needed to do that, but I dare say some of the work in terms of the work streams will actually drift over as well. And because the balance is a bit higher, we will be able to accommodate that in the future years. As I say, it is an area that's ever evolving at the moment with the CJC, and therefore you would expect some of the variances that are demonstrated here in respect of the Q3 budget. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Chris, for that run through. Again, all very straightforward and logical. Thank you. Are there any questions from or comments from colleagues on the report, please? No? Okay. Again, then I'm more than happy to move that report. So could I ask for a seconder, please? Yeah, thank you very much, Linda. And can I ask again, local authority colleagues to show if they're in favour of the report, please?
I can confirm that report has been noted, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we move on then to the corporate plan for 23 to 28 and the priorities specifically for 26, 27. They're on pages 41 to 48 of the report.
Yeah, I think you've missed an item.
Yeah.
Have I
agenda item 6 is the budget.
Yeah. Sorry.
Probably
right.
the most critical one for next year, Chair.
Oh, don't worry about the money. Yeah, so budget for 26, 27, pages 29 to 40 of the report, please. Thank you, Chris. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Well, as I think members will realise, there is a requirement in the CJC to actually set the budget before the 31st of January and to notify the levying bodies of the levy that is applicable so they can accommodate it within their budgets and in respect to the constituent authorities within the council tax calculations that they're doing during February. So that is under statute. We have had some discussion on this, and members will recall that we've had some briefing sessions and some detailed discussions around the various work that is going on, and in particular the work streams work that is going on. By way of background, you will recall last year when we set the budget, we actually targeted a budget which was the requested budget by the work streams at that point in time, but we wanted to curtail the increase in the levy, and then we actually planned to use reserves over a 3-year period to keep the levy at a reasonable level. And I think last year we actually kept it at the same level as the previous year, or is slightly below, but still achieving our first year objectives. That year objectives. So that has actually rolled forward, and obviously there is a continual commitment as it stands and as it's proposed here to utilise some of the balances over the next couple of years, but also keeping an element of reserves available for some of the changes that we will see in the CJC role over the future years, and bearing in mind it's a 3-year budget. So the financial outlook and the picture that's painted here is within the report actually provides two options. These options have been discussed in December, and subsequently they have been presented to Scrutiny Committee earlier this month, and I'll come back to the comments that they made. And that was after some significant dialogue with the various work streams. What has also been considered and brought in the budget is around the Welsh Government grants that we've been able to secure, and as far as the regional transport plan and the support coming in respect of that. Over the last couple of years, we had 125,000 in respect to 23-24, 100,000 24-25, and we secured 200,000, which I referred to in the last report in respect to 25-26. For the continuation of that plan. The expectation is that Welsh Government will provide a further 100,000 in next year in respect of the regional transport grant, and that has been accommodated within the report. In addition, we did during the year secure what is now referred to as the Capacity and Capability Improvement Grant, and that has been secured as I understand it, for a 3-year period, and we're due to claim this year in the next couple of weeks. But running forward into next year and the year after, we have therefore consequently included a further 200,000 in each of the years. I mentioned in the budget monitoring report previously that actually the Chief Operating Officer has been appointed, and obviously now that will be included as part of the salary costs going forward on an annual basis, which obviously makes a difference to the budget accordingly. Some of the other areas that have been adjusted within the budget, joint committee function and the governance function, accountability function, etc., has been included and estimated within there. In terms of local authority services that are direct, there's been a 4% increase in line with the salary inflation. Audit Wales have increased, have given an indicative 5.5% increase, and then we've applied a 3% increase on general inflation across the piece. So the presentation within the report gives you Appendix A and Appendix B, which are two scenarios. They both contain the contribution coming in to support the bottom line from reserves, and that rolls in terms of reserve usage, 167 next year, 182 the following year, and 197 the following year. As far as economic well-being and energy, in both the scenarios, we've been able to support the request at an estimated 52,000 within the report. And that has been supported through the piece for the following 2 years. The strategic planning is a bit more difficult because there's some significant discussions with Welsh Government over the cost of that, and that ranges between the one scenario and the other. There's an additional 600,000 uplift within the actual cost in going for the full costing of that. However, very conscious of discussions and with Welsh Government and the need to take those further, and I think that has been spoken about in the Joint Committee previously, and certainly was spoken about in the Scrutiny Committee. The transport, obviously I've mentioned the grant and the accommodation of the 100,000 coming from Welsh Government, with the backdrop of an estimated 152,000 in terms of cost, and the detail I think has been supplied to the subgroup in terms of that information previously. So the scenario we've got here today, and the recommendation is that we actually consider option 2, which is Appendix B, which is the lower cost option, which is the requested budget with a minimum allocation to strategic planning, and that is purposely done that way on the basis that there's further dialogue to take place with Welsh Government and further detail to work up in terms of what the alternatives are if the support is not forthcoming from Welsh Government. The financial impacts of the two options is that if we go with option A, which is the full value, there's an extra 600,000 in the budget, which takes us up to 1.7 million as opposed to 1.1 million. So the consequential really on the levies is quite significant, and this is something that we should be considering. If we go with option 2, which is the requested budget with a lower level or minimum level in terms of strategic planning, there is an 18% rise in the levies, which I think is accommodatable within the local authorities. They are aware of that. And bearing in mind there was no increase at all last year. The alternative, which really becomes a strain, is it'd be 118% increase, which is quite hefty and would be quite a challenge for the local authorities. So bearing in mind that there's a path to travel on the strategic planning, there is an element of reserves held, which is not only for this, but for other things that develop as we develop the CJC. And it seems wise to keep an element of a buffer there, but also keep a buffer there, recognizing that we may need to move direction, enlarge, change service delivery during the year, and it allows us an element of scope within that. So effectively, Appendix B summarizes the recommendation. I did refer earlier on to the Scrutiny Committee. The Scrutiny Committee did have quite a detailed discussion on that, and whilst the actual minutes aren't completely out yet, I think it's fair to say that where they landed is they landed supporting the proposal of option 2 with some reservations, and the minute as is suggested at the moment, and it's not confirmed, is and I'll read it out. Following scrutiny, the recommendation was supporting the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee budget with the addition pre-existing concerns about the affordability of the SDP. So they are supporting the budget with some reservations because of the pre-existing discussions they've had around the SDP. And I think that is something that is reasonable and something that we will, I dare say, come back with in the year. But I think we're all fully aware of some of the discussions that are going on with Welsh Government at the moment over the delivery of that. So, Chair, happy to take any questions. As I say, it's a small rise in levy that is manageable by local authorities, and I'm very conscious, particularly of local authorities, in terms of the challenges that they're facing around the budget at the moment. And we will be using contribution from reserves, but we will still have a bit of tolerance there that we can develop direction during the year. I think the other thing to recognise is with a full-time chief operating officer, some of the direction and some of the delivery will change as well during the year. And I dare say in due course there will be proposals coming back from the chief operating officer in terms of certain angles of delivery of the CJC going forward. So diolch for listening, and willing to take any questions, Chair. Diolch.
Thank you, Chris, for that run through. Again, I think strikes the right balance, as you're quite right to draw our attention to the fact that we're setting a budget which is reflective of the concerns we'd have in terms of placing burdens on regional taxpayers. I think it strikes the right balance there. As you say, small amount of reserves being used, but also we know that we are making some progress in terms of potentially securing additional funding to help with those SDP arrangements. And again, that's something that we will continue to pursue, which obviously if we can be successful in that, will provide potentially up to 200,000 extra towards the budget. So thank you for that, Chris. Really helpful run through. I'll just open it out now for questions or comments. Steve, Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, thanks, Rob, and thanks for that, Chris. As chair of the Strategic Planning Subcommittee. Obviously, we've had the conversation in our CJC, and thank you, Chris, for highlighting the Scrutiny Committee's comments. It's important we take everybody's on board. I certainly agree with what you've said, Rob and Chris, option 2 and Appendix B. I just wanted to make, there's money for the transport, regional transport plans, and yet they can't identify funding for the SDP from Welsh Government. So that's all I wanted to say was for us to acknowledge that the recommendation from the Joint Committee is to agree a minimum budget for the strategic development plan to avoid having to impose larger levies on constituent authorities like ourselves, of course. However, we must also accept that there is a statutory requirement on the CJC to prepare and adopt an SDP for our region. So I therefore asking today that we make every effort as officer level and political level to work and lobby Welsh Government to ensure that they provide additional funding to deliver upon this responsibility, this critical responsibility. As the CJC, we must also ensure that we include the SDP within the CJC's medium-term financial plan, so that we can ensure that the team responsible for its preparation is appropriately resourced. So I think that is critical to get this SDP eventually, hopefully funded and delivered for all our regions and certainly our local authorities. But thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much, Steve, for that. Anybody else got any comments or questions? If not, I'm more than happy to move the report again. Look for a seconder, please. Yeah, thank you, Linda. And then we'll go to the vote. And again, this one is for local authority to vote on, please. So could I ask you all to show if you're in favour, please?
The recommendation's been approved, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now then, we'll move to Corporate Plan 23 to 28, priorities for 26-27, pages 41 to 48 of the agenda. And I'll come to Wendy Walters for this item, please, Wendy.
Okay, diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Chair. So before you today, I'm seeking decision for the updates on the current objectives and therefore priorities to deliver your well-being objectives that you set a few years ago now. So what officers have done is revisit those well-being objectives. Firstly, ask the question, do they need renewing or changing or adding to? And the response to that was, no, we are satisfied that those objectives remain and are still relevant. So therefore, in line with the Act, you don't need to reconsult with the public on those. And then following that, what priorities and subsequent actions are needed to deliver on those. And that is where they have been updated in consultation with key partners and officers, and also the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have had an input into those actions and priorities. So they are there for members to consider today. You will all be very familiar with them in your various roles on the subcommittees within the CJC. There is nothing there that members won't be aware of. Indeed, we've discussed many of them today. So I'm happy to take questions and or indeed ask colleagues to come in and answer on some of the specifics. But I would like to think that members will be fully familiar and comfortable with the proposed actions and priorities for today. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. Thank you for that. I'll open it up. Any comments from colleagues on this one? If not, then thank you for that, Wendy. I'll happily move the report. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you, John. And could I ask again, local authority colleagues to show if they're in favour, please?
Thank you very much. The recommendation's been approved, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move now to the subcommittee highlight report, pages 49 to 56. And again, Wendy, I'll come back to you on this one.
Again, this is here really for information for members. All members will be familiar with content because they are part of the scrutiny process, and also the activities will have been discussed in your relevant subcommittee. So again, and actually we've discussed quite a few on the agenda today, so happy to take any questions, but they are more there for information.
Many thanks. Any questions or comments to Wendy on this item? No, well, this one's only for noting. So again, could I ask you to show if you're in favour of noting the report, please? Thank you. Thank you,
Report's been
colleagues.
noted, Chair.
And then final item is our forward work programme 57 to 58. Again, just opening this one up just to say if you have any comments or questions on the work programme. Steve, Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And also last item. I think it's probably important, Chloe, if we had a Celtic Freeport update. I think it's really important that we're all in line with where we are on our Celtic Freeports for the region. Thank you.
Yeah, I can add that, Councillor Hunt, and just to let you know, it is on the agenda for the Economic Subcommittee in March as well, so that'll be updated in that subcommittee, but I can certainly add it on this agenda as well.
Yeah, everybody happy with that? I think that'd be sensible for us to get that update. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, are you all happy to note the forward work programme with that agenda item addition? Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
And then finally, colleagues, urgent items. I've not been advised of any, but happy to take them if there are any. A quick scan of the room. I don't see anybody indicating. So with that, thank you very much, Diolch yn fawr for your attendance. Again, great to see you all. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you,
Bye,
Mr.
everybody.
Chair.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Diolch. Thank you.